Welcome to Diamonds and Dumpster Fires, the show where we talk about finding strength when life falls apart. I'm your host, Melie, and around here, resilience isn't perfection. It's falling flat, getting back up, and maybe laughing about it later. From breakups to breakthroughs, we mix faith, neuroscience, and a little sass to help you rebuild a life that actually feels like yours. Are you ready? Let's go. Have you ever had to tell someone, "So nice to meet you," for like the fourth time? And you find yourself standing there thinking, dude, we have met. We have talked. I know your name. I know details about your life. Yet here we are again. Or maybe it's not that moment for you. Maybe it's the text that never came back. The conversation that just slowly disappeared. The person who just stopped responding. And in those instances, your knee-jerk reaction isn't anger. It's this quiet, anxious urge that says, "Hey, hi, just checking in, just reminding you that I'm still here." I saw a comment on Instagram recently that honestly stopped me in my tracks. It said, "You don't need to remind people that you exist." And since I read that, I haven't stopped thinking about that sentence. Because on one hand, it feels really grounding, like dignity, like a deep breath. And on the other hand, if you've ever felt lonely, overlooked, forgotten, or invisible, that sentence can almost feel threatening, right? So today, I want to talk about that kind of loneliness, the loneliness of feeling unseen and why it hurts so much. And also what resilience looks like when the urge to chase visibility shows up. So welcome back to Diamonds and Dumpster Fires. I'm Melie, and I am really glad you're here. There's a difference between being alone and feeling invisible. You can be surrounded by tons and tons of people and yet still feel unseen. You can be involved and engaged and showing up and still walk away wondering, did I actually register with anyone? This kind of loneliness isn't loud, it's quiet. It creeps in after conversations, after interactions that should have felt connecting but really didn't. And it often brings with it this question, if I am not memorable, do I matter? And that, my friends, is a heavy question to wrestle with, and it's not random. Psychologists who study social exclusion talk about how being ignored or overlooked doesn't just feel disappointing. It threatens some really basic human needs, things like belonging, self-worth, and even our sense that we matter. So when invisibility hurts, it's not because you're too sensitive. It's because your brain is wired to care deeply about connection. And here's something that I find incredibly validating. Research shows us that social rejection and exclusion activate the same distress systems in the brain as physical pain. So, in other words, your brain doesn't treat being overlooked as some minor inconvenience. It treats it like a real threat. Because for most of human history, belonging wasn't optional. It was survival. So when someone forgets you, ignores you, or disappears on you, your nervous system doesn't calmly analyze the situation, it reacts. And that's why moments that seem small on the surface, someone forgets your name, you get a missed response, there's a slow fade to a friendship, it can hit so hard because your brain is asking one core question. Do I still belong? And if you've experienced loss, rejection, or inconsistency in relationships before, those of us who have been through divorce or extreme breakups, that question can come with a lot of emotional volume. Not because you're broken, but because your nervous system has learned to stay alert around disconnection. So I want to share a personal story here. I have had many experiences, and I hate to say it, but a lot of them have taken place in church spaces where I have had these long, meaningful, and deep conversations with people. We talk about things like life, faith, hard things. I am somebody who does not really enjoy surface-level conversations, which is one of the reasons I did so poorly at speed dating, but that's a story for another time. So getting back to this, I will have these deep conversations. One in particular I'm thinking of with a guy that we talked about divorce and breakups. And, I learned all these things about him, and I remember those things. But then later, these same people will introduce themselves to me again and again and again, like, hi, I'm so-and-so, and put out their hand to shake. And it's like, dude, we shared trauma together. What are you talking about? Honestly, whenever this happens, and it happens to me often, I feel like there is this internal moment where I feel myself shrink a little bit. Because even though I know people meet a lot of faces and names are genuinely hard to remember, and sometimes maybe I won't even remember the name, but I will remember the face and the story. And when this happens to me, it still lands as I didn't register. But here's where resilience really, really matters. There is research showing that remembering someone's face and their name is actually a pretty complex memory task. It relies on attention and memory systems in the brain, and those systems don't always work perfectly, especially in busy social environments. So forgetting doesn't always mean someone didn't care. But, and this is important, it's still okay if it hurt. Two things can absolutely be true at the same time. It may not have been a personal attack on you specifically. Probably it wasn't, right? But it can still have landed painfully. Resilience doesn't mean minimizing your experience. It means holding your worth steady even in those moments when it stings. And now let's talk a little bit about dating, because ghosting hits invisibility in a very specific way. When someone disappears without explanation, especially someone that you may have been dating or getting to know in a dating sense, your brain starts scanning for meaning. What changed? Did I mess something up? Did I imagine this connection? And very often, there is this impulse to reach out. Not even always because you want the conversation to continue, but because you want to reassert your existence and let them know, hey, like, I matter. Just a little hey, something to remind them that you're still here. And if this is something that you struggle with, let me just tell you, I do as well. I will tell you another story here. So recently, I had reconnected with someone. We have been friends on and off for, I don't even know now, maybe 2-ish years. And we reconnected, we hung out, we spent time together. And no, this was not somebody that I was dating. But we did meet on a dating app originally, and, at least on my end, there were some feelings there. So we hang out, and it had been a while since we had seen each other, but we hang out, and after that night, nothing happened, nothing like, no fights, no nothing like that. But pretty much a month goes by, and I had decided I wasn't going to do this like, hey, I'm here kind of thing. So about a month goes by, and I don't hear from this person, which is pretty upsetting, right? But I'm like, okay, I'm taking it as information. This is just information about the connection. This is information about this person's character and all of that. Lo and behold, the holidays roll around and I get this ridiculous, I don't even know. It said something like season's greetings from my family to yours. I'm sure it was a mass text that probably went out to 150 women, right? Because it was definitely not personal. My first inclination was to respond with something like, what are you, my realtor? But I didn't do that. Instead, I decided to respond with something personal. I got nothing back. So maybe it was even an app. Who knows that this guy just probably has a system in place. But here's the thing. Feeling upset about something like this is totally normal. And research on social exclusion shows us that being ignored, especially without clarity, can create distress and rumination. Our brains really struggle with unresolved connections, so that urge to reach out isn't weakness. It's just your nervous system trying to regulate uncertainty. But our studies in resilience will invite us to take a pause here because, remember this, if someone is choosing absence from you, reminding them that you exist doesn't create connection. It actually creates self-abandonment. And I say that gently. And I say that as someone who has gone the route of trying to remind people that I exist and then just feeling icky afterwards. You don't heal invisibility by chasing people into presence. So let's come back to that comment that I read on Instagram. You don't need to remind people that you exist. And this is absolutely not about becoming closed off. It's about dignity. People who want to know you will make space for you. People who value you will remember you. And people who are meant to stay aren't going to require you to audition for them over and over again to belong in their presence. You are not forgettable because someone happened to forget. You are not invisible because somebody that used to be in your life faded away. You don't need to chase visibility to be valuable. So let's make this practical. I'm going to give you some resilience tools that you can take with you the next time you start to feel this way. So the first one is the 90-second pause. And yes, it is as simple as it sounds. When that wave hits, you are literally going to just pause before reacting. You can place your hand on your chest. You can slow your exhale. You can name what's happening. Say something like, "My nervous system is reading this as rejection." And then just pause. Trust me when I tell you that that pause can be the thing that really changes your circumstances, okay? You don't want to just react. Number 2, the no reminder rule. Especially in dating or those one-sided connections like what I mentioned with my friend, said in quotes, don't send messages whose main purpose is to prove you still exist. Send messages that align with your values, not your fears. So let's say that you've realized this person does not align with your values. Make sure, first and foremost, you take that pause. If you're going to cut off a friendship, I do actually have an episode that you can listen to on ending connections gracefully, but always take that pause, probably more than 90 seconds if you're about to end a friendship, but take that pause. And then if you are going to end the connection, do it from a place that aligns with your values. Don't do it from a place of like, you ignored me, so now I'm going to tell you off, because honestly, you won't feel good about that. The next resilience tool that I would offer you is what I call the 2-lane reframe. So when someone forgets you, you can take 2 different lanes. They're both options that you have available to you. So option number 1, lane 1, is generosity. Option number 2, we call lane 2, is self-protection. So you can offer grace without over-investing. So when someone forgets you, you can choose to see it as this person's probably really busy and maybe they just had, a moment of lapse of forgetting, or maybe they meet so many people and they got confused. Or you can take that lane of self-protection that's like, I don't need this person to remember me, or whatever it is that we do. You all know it because we all do it, right? But we can offer grace without over-investing. And number 4, we can build belonging on purpose. So instead of chasing people who disappear, invest in those spaces where mutuality exists. So instead of sending off that text to that person who uses an app or who knows, maybe even ChatGPT to respond to you, find that one consistent friend who actually does care and will respond and wants to hear your story. Instead of worrying about getting to know tons of people, maybe at a mega church, try to find one small group, one place where you don't have to perform. Belonging grows through safety and repetition, not by impressing. And I never want to end an episode without addressing the faith part of a story. So I want to say this really clearly. Being seen by God does not erase your human need for connection, but it does steady it. Scripture reminds us again and again that God sees us fully, that we are known, that we are not forgotten. God literally formed each and every one of us in the womb. He loves us. He knows us. People may overlook you. They may miss you. They may walk away. But you are absolutely not invisible, not to God, and not in the places where real belonging is meant to grow. So if this episode stirred something tender in you, I want you to hear this. You are absolutely allowed to want connection without feeling the need to chase it. You're allowed to step back without disappearing. And you are allowed to trust that what's meant to stay will not require you to keep reminding it that you exist. You are still here, and that counts. Thank you so much for listening. If this episode resonated with you, would you share it with a friend? Or come join me over on Instagram at Melie Williams. I'd love to hear your story. Until next time, be well. That's a wrap on this episode of Diamonds and Dumpster Fires. If you're walking through the ashes right now, remember, you're not broken. You are becoming. Don't forget to subscribe, share with a friend who needs it, and come back next week for more faith, honesty, and a whole lot of heart. See you next time.